Hello guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome to the Popcorn Podcast. This is episode number 86. Clara's back on the couch for our monthly wrap up. This time we're going to be talking about everything the pair of us watched in the month of September. Let's get straight into it. So the first film that we watched was on the 1st of September. We went to see The Conjuring Last Rites, the latest Conjuring film, the supposed last film following Ed and Lorraine Warren, the Ghostbusters, as people like to joke in the film. Some people like to joke in the film, one of which was our dear friend Ebony.
Yes!
Ebony, who also works behind the scenes on the pod, shooting the amazing BTS that you can see on the social media, reels, etc. Ebony is first and foremost an actress and a great one at that, and she's in this film.
Yeah, and she was great.
She was great, and she actually had a couple of lines. She spoke to Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. So we went to the multimedia screening, the Warner Brothers multimedia screening for this, and obviously when she came on, we were just like...
No, it was kind of funny because, there's so many scares, so much audience reaction in this film.
Yeah.
And, in a lecture hall, a student asked a question and me and Dylan are like...
We know that student. We know that student.
And everyone's like, why are they bugging out? This is a very calm scene.
Yeah. As for the film, I had a lot of fun with it.
I actually really enjoyed it. I think the point of Conjuring is to be a little bit cheesy and just to give you a lot of scares, freak you out a bit, and be an enjoyable film. And I think this film 100% was. Yeah,
I mean, speaking from the people I've seen sort of online talk about the film, a lot of people haven't really responded that great to it in comparison to the other films, which is I think quite surprising, because I think this film really, I mean, this is partly why they're criticizing it, but it really takes its time to sort of establish the stakes, I want to say. And it's not until the sort of halfway point, or even just past the halfway point of the film, where Ed and Lorraine Warren actually get into the case. A lot of it is just sort of them kind of setting up the family and setting up their daughter. I really had a good time.
I had a good time with it as well. I think maybe also you have to take the Conjuring films in context. I'm not saying everyone was doing this, but they're not art horror cinema. They're films you watch to have a laugh and a scare.
Yeah, they're like popcorn horror.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think if you're looking for something more from The Conjuring, you're going to be disappointed. I thought this film fulfilled the popcorn horror genre very well, and I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah,
I feel like if it is the last time we get to see Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as these characters, I will dearly miss them. They're one of my favorite movie couples. I was speaking to someone recently, I think at work, who's just sort of saying the Conjuring films aren't even horror films, they're just love stories. The two of those guys are always just at the core of these films. I think that's what makes them so great, to have characters you actually care about. So I thought it was a fitting send-off, and they also had this kind of endgame moment at the end of the film.
Yeah, I can't lie.
God.
That was I think the only thing about the Conjuring films that I think as the later ones gives me I don't love is the whole superhero aspect of Ed and Lorraine. It's more fun in the first one they just they do their what's it called, exorcism, and that's fine, but it's just a bit much.
Telekinesis and stuff. But I was actually referring to there's a scene towards the end of the film where a lot of the previous characters from the Conjuring films appear in this church, and James Wan is in there looking like the most out of place guy, a most random guy, but of course James Wan is the creator behind this and the sort of mastermind. So I thought it was a fitting send off. I had a really good time at the multimedia screening. People were shouting and screaming at the scares, so I think it definitely ticked a lot of boxes.
Yeah, 100%.
Next up, we went to see Jaws in IMAX. Love Jaws, love Spielberg, favorite director. Can't really say much more than Jaws is a masterpiece, and just to sort of get to experience it in IMAX. I mean, I think it was out for a week, and I kept having stuff on, and I was really sad, because I was I think I'm gonna miss this film, but we did manage to find a slot that worked for us.
The one thing that I from this rewatch was this is why Jaws is a masterpiece, is I know where every scare comes, I know what the scare's going to be, and all of this kind of thing. The face, 100%. As scared, if not more so than the first time I watched it, almost because I know what's coming. Everything's so perfectly timed on a rewatch, it doesn't lose its intensity at all, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, also, I do feel it's a little bit of a random film to project in IMAX, but it actually weirdly, actually added... I mean, I think it's a perfect film regardless of how you're watching it, but, just to see it in IMAX and just to sort of get a much more of a feeling of the scale of it. Even like the shark, and like it's a pretty good big shark to begin with, but like just to see that on IMAX, and like every time like there's a close up of the shark just to sort of emphasize its kind of monstrosity, I think really kind of added to it a little bit.
I feel like as well, people sometimes like, you know, idiots sometimes criticize this film, no offense,
do they,
for the rubbery shark, whatever. And I actually like, and when I was the first time I watched this, I was so young that I was just terrified of the shark. Like I didn't think, oh my God, that's rubber.
Yeah.
But on a rewatch in IMAX, I was a bit like, is this going to highlight the like old fashioned like sort of effects of the shark? But I actually think I don't find it a problem. The only time you really notice that the shark isn't real is in the final bit. And at that point you're just like, no, this has happened to this character. Like you're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I really don't believe that it's an issue, and IMAX doesn't highlight it at all.
Maybe this is just me, but like I've never understood the whole rubber shark problem, because I don't have much experience with sharks, but never at one point am I necessarily like, oh, that this is clearly a dummy, or this is clear. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just so immersed in it.
Yeah.
I don't really care about it. But
no, 100%. And they use real shark footage in like the cage scene and things like that. Like it's just not. But I thought that was. I always thought that was a bit of a stupid criticism, but anyway.
Yeah. Up next, we began our watches of Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography, starting off with his directorial debut, Hard 8, which is a film that nobody talks about when it comes to PTA, despite it being his first. I do think it's overall, I do think it's one of his weaker films, but I think it's still a brilliant film.
I don't know. I actually really like this film. I think maybe I appreciate, I know you came out of it and you were like, the ending was a bit messy, but I think there's something about just that initial way he builds character and films those character interactions is so telling of the director he will become.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I really invested, and I think actually like I found Gwyneth Paltrow's character maybe up until the point of, you know, the sort of turning point of the film. Don't necessarily want to spoil it. I found her very convincing and very believable, and both complicated, sympathetic, and profoundly irritating. And I think that is something he pulls off so well, that sort of fact that people can be so many multiple different things. And I think in her character, he just did that so brilliantly, and almost in a way that I haven't felt as much in another character that he's done.
Really?
Since that.
What, since his first film?
I think that, no. Like, I think for me, that was like for me personally, I'm not saying not for other people, that was the archetype and best conflict of how I felt about a character for the first 2/3 of the film.
Interesting.
I really was like, she's so annoying, she's so sympathetic, I feel so sorry for her, and yet also not. Like, everything was coming together in that one character, and I found that like a very, I mean, obviously an incredibly difficult thing to achieve, but something that I almost haven't felt as strongly since her. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, like, as with a lot of directorial debuts, I mean, PTA's sort of signature DNA when it comes to sort of characters and building those people is all over this. And so as someone who has seen a lot of his films since, to watch this first one to sort of see where it all began was like a real treat. I just had a kind of a problem with the third act. I feel like the first two acts were so strong, and the third act kind of descends into this almost like somewhat like meandering Tarantino almost kind of sort of ending, except for it's not really Tarantino. I don't know. I felt like the film was going in a direction, and then, not to say that switching a direction is necessarily a bad thing, but I don't feel like the third act kind of really brought it together in a way that I felt was sort of did the characters that much justice. I feel that's what I mean. I feel like why for example, the Gwyneth Paltrow's character that I really hooked onto at the start, I didn't feel like I lost her because of what she did and the decisions she made. It was more that the film just stopped being about that. And they just sort of threw this all away in sort of more of a like plot heavy Tarantino-esque drama. And it was just a bit of a like, what happened to these characters? Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to say that sort of in another lifetime, I definitely think Gwyneth Paltrow could have been an amazing Harley Quinn. I think if the DC sort of start building their universe back in the 90s as opposed to sort of the 2010s, I've been seeing a lot of these like AI generated like 90s car, like what if these superheroes were played by 90s actors. I think Gwyneth Paltrow could have been a great Harley Quinn. On the night, we watched Boogie Nights. I'd never seen Boogie Nights. You'd never seen Boogie Nights. This is essentially the film that really put PTA on the map, I would say. It's one of the most kind of beloved films, I think, of the 90s. One of the most popular for sure. And this is kind of a sort of, to put it bluntly, like Goodfellas, but for the porn industry sort of thing. But also never sort of losing that sort of signature PTA. I think he directed this film when he was like 26 years old, which is how old I am, and which is actually insane.
That's totally insane.
And just sort of how he's able to make such a taboo subject kind of hilarious, but also full of depth and seamlessly sort of navigate a multitude of characters while also kind of having the film be about something really substantial, I think is great. And also it has like the funniest character name, like Dirk Diggler, Mark Wahlberg's iconic character in this.
I did feel when it started, I was like, is this just shock factor of the fact it's in like the porn industry? Because he does really play into that. Like he's not like frightened of going there, all of this stuff. And I was like, okay, great. Is this going to be just like, you know, am I watching this just because it's so like, we were sitting next to each other and we were like, what are we watching? Like, honestly, you were like, if someone walks in, like, it looks so strange, all of this kind of stuff. But actually it did, like you said, like it wasn't that. It did have depth. He used their subject in order to say something about all the characters and to say something about the state of that kind of industry and that kind of world and to like really comment on it. So I think, you know, it wasn't, what I was frightened of definitely didn't happen.
Yeah. I think it's very Once Upon a Time in Hollywood-esque, but he, instead of using literally sort of Hollywood as a sort of device to kind of give a commentary on, he substitutes that for the adult industry basically. And I think it's great. And then there's also this random like Alfred Molina cameo that comes in. I was like, oh my god, is that Alfred Molina? But yeah,
that was hilarious.
I think it's a brilliant film, and I think potentially one of his best, but that's not really saying much considering this guy has done so many great films, which we'll get to. On the 10th, we finally checked out Caught Stealing, directed, of course, by Darren Aronofsky, his sort of next film after he did The Whale with Brendan Fraser, which is a completely different film. This one stars Austin Butler and Zoe Kravitz and a multitude of other actors, and it's got this crime drama thriller. Thoughts on Caught Stealing? Didn't
love it. Definitely not the usual sort of depth and existential crisis of Darren Aronofsky. More of a simplistic, plot heavy, action based film. Fine. Not necessarily bothered to rewatch, not necessarily a film I'd recommend. Not terrible. I feel like he was probably just having kind of fun with this one. And honestly, fair enough, he does a lot of hard hitting, very heavy, very emotionally wrought films, and he wanted to do something a bit different, but I didn't love it personally. I did think, sorry to use this term, but I did think it was a bit mid. Like I feel like, you know, a filmmaker like Darren Aronofsky is always one that I'm really intrigued to see what he does next. You know, he's such a bold filmmaker in that device, and I do think, I was very excited to see Caught Stealing purely for the fact that I was like, okay, Darren Aronofsky is going to take a sort of typical sort of crime drama film and sort of put his own unique spin on it, but unfortunately I feel like it just sort of slotted in with all of those kind of generic sort of films you'd find in this category, despite, you know, the filmmaking being top notch and despite the performances being great. I think Austin Butler, it was really refreshing to see him in a role like this, because I feel like often you see him a kind of really sort of putting on some sort of like persona, so to speak, like if he's playing Elvis or if he's playing... Which being sort of an ordinary guy.
Yeah, like playing an ordinary guy thrust into this horrible situation and sort of see and really get to see Austin Butler's range a bit more. And I think he delivered. I think he was great. Also, there's a lot of sort of villainous characters, and there's these two sort of Jewish gangster characters.
Yeah.
And they're both played by... they're played by Vincent D'Onofrio and Liev Schreiber, both of whom have played Kingpin in one sort of form or another. Vincent D'Onofrio obviously played Kingpin in the Daredevil series, and Liev Schreiber played Kingpin in the Into the Spider-Verse film. So that was quite a cool Easter egg that I think was purely coincidental, but there you go. caught stealing. On the 11th, I went to rewatch Weapons with my good friend Chris because he had been dying to see it. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll go check it out with you again. I think it's a great film. I will say, as much as I do love Weapons and everybody seems to be really loving Weapons, it did fall half a star for me on a rewatch. I just think that maybe this is just personal taste, but I still think it's a very, very good film, but I just feel like the fact that I think it is such a well-made film, and the idea behind it is really, really sort of got under my skin. You know, this idea of children going missing and sort of this kind of witch-like mastermind behind it all. I do feel like it is kind of just that, and I wish the film said something a bit more, and I know not every film has to say something or be something, but I feel like a film this loved in 2025, in order for it to have a certain level of rewatchability for me, or a longing to sort of revisit it,
needs to go deeper.
It needs to go a little deeper is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
no, I so feel that, like, either with saying something profound or just with the characters maybe just needed to cut a level deeper to be that rewatchable. That makes sense.
But still a great film, and I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't already. On the 12th, we watched Punch Drunk Love, PTA's Punch Drunk Love, starring Adam Sandler, which is a performance that I'm still torn between. So I'm torn between this performance and his performance in Uncut Gems, as which is the best Adam Sandler performance. I still think Uncut Gems slightly sort of beats this one out, but this is such a brilliant film. So good. I
really enjoyed this film. I think is personal preference wise is not my favorite PTA film. I thought it was done very well. I thought it was very hilarious. And obviously the ending is like very heartwarming. It's like a fun film. But I don't know. Again, he does character brilliantly. Like the sort of awkwardness, problematicness of each character is done very well, but you can still sympathize. All really well acted.
It's kind of a sort of play on a rom-com, but for sort of really kind of like a mentally anxious. You follow a really mentally anxious character, and sort of how PTA sort of uses his filmmaking to really kind of elevate that sense of sort of anxiety, I guess, with Adam Sandler's character. And I think like just sort of the kind of random nature of it also was really quite fun. The first time I watched
the like pudding and everything, these sort of random side plots that this guy goes down is just both hilarious and kind of indicative of real life. Like you are going to be obsessed with something a little bit crazy and a little bit weird throughout your life. I kind of love that PTA brings that into his films. It's not all the like very neat put away storylines, and that partly makes it great.
Brilliant. And also, as we have been watching PTA's films, Philip Seymour Hoffman has been slowly kind of growing in his roles, I guess. So like in Hard Eight, he had like one cameo at like a sort of casino table, and then in Boogie Nights he was this sort of sound guy who had a crush on.
He was really good.
Oh, he's so good.
Because I've seen him in a few other things before. Like I have seen Magnolia before, and then seeing him in Boogie Nights, I was like,
he really transforms.
He's a completely different person.
And then here in Punch Drunk Love, he gives one of my favorite like line deliveries of like he just completely crashes out, and he's like fuck, like on the phone to he's like shut the fuck. I don't want to like swear too much, but it's brilliant, and I definitely recommend checking out Punch Drunk Love, because I know it's a lot of people's favorite PTA films. You know?
No, I know. That's why I meant personal preference. It isn't, because I know it's so high up on other people's lists. Enjoyed it. I don't know. Just maybe I don't know, but
I think the first time I watched it, not to go on again, first time I watched Punch Drunk Love, I didn't really get it. Like, maybe because I just didn't really know PTA style that much. I didn't love it as much. This time, I absolutely loved it. Like, genuinely, it just clicked into place.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I guess maybe it's partly that, like, me just bringing too much of my, like, own...
expectation?
No, like, my own biases to the film. Like, the main guy is very sweet and sympathetic, but also deeply problematic. So I find myself going to the girl, get out, get out, get out. He just beat up on an entire bathroom, like, leave. Like, do you know what I mean?
You thought this was going to have some crazy twist.
I was like, he's violent, like, get out of there. So
that's one of the most satisfying scenes as well.
Yeah. But, like, obviously he's very sympathetic, and I know it's not about that and stuff like that. I think just, again, it's one of those things where you bring your personal biases to a film, and I really enjoyed it, but just maybe not my favourite.
Yeah. On the 13th, we went to the Prince Charles Cinema to watch Haine.
Yes.
Haine. Of course, a very, very sort of beloved film from France, starring I was about to say Vincent D'Onofrio, but Vincent Cassel, who is basically in this trio of fantastic actors. They're all just brilliant. They're like the movie Trio, one of the greatest in cinema history for sure.
Can I just come in with a weirdly niche fact?
Go on.
So the director of this, do you have it up there?
The director of this, yes, Matthew Kassovitz.
Yeah, so he's also an actor, and he stars in this television series, The Bureau or The Office, but it's not The Office, which is this sort of crazy, phenomenal spy drama. I mean, he gets captured by ISIS at one point, and like me and my father watched this sort of religiously when I was in sixth form, and my dad came and he was like, "Oh, you know, he directed this." I was like, "Shut up!" Like, no way! Like, he's just like. But he did, and I just find the idea that someone's career, you could go from directing a film like that to then becoming this sort of like lead of this sort of crazy TV show, and that those two things exist in one world. Also, if you haven't seen it, check out Le Bureau. It's actually really good.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I mean, from you guys, but
yeah, it's actually also just really great. But it's kind of fascinating that someone's career can sort of be so many things in this industry. I kind of love that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it reminds me of Brady Corbet, who directed The Brutalist. He came from a background in acting, sort of in these kind of like sort of throwaway comedies. I think he was in like Thunderbirds or something, like stop motion, like really kind of ridiculous things. And now he's directing like.
But I feel like that's usually the way it goes.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And then
it's not
direct.
surprising.
But this is so weird, the fact that he made La Haine this sort of masterpiece and then went into act. I don't know. Sorry. I just thought that was a crazy sort of little nugget of.
Yeah. And like it is absolutely a masterpiece. I watched this for the first time because it had been on my list for so long, and I'd wanted to watch it in the right way. I wanted to go to the Prince Charles and check it out. And we managed to catch it. And I just think of just like how well it kind of sort of it's able to tackle such like sort of grim and brooding subject material, but do it with such levity through these three characters. Like it uses their sort of banter and their friendship to basically tell a story about the I guess the joys of friendship, but also like the tragedy of sort of being this kind of marginalized part of this marginalized youth, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what it does so brilliantly as well is it doesn't ever tell you what it wants you to think.
Yeah.
Like, it obviously has a clear message, or, you know, what I believe is a clear message about sort of, you know, what it is to be from a marginalized community, what it is to be from an immigrant background, what it is to be working class in France or Paris at that time, and it is really brilliant about that, but it never tells you what to think. It's always just through these three men and their friendship, and their friendship is like both very sort of knotty but also very loving, and they're all very honest with each other, and it's sort of full of laughs and fun and like heartbreak, and I think all those things coming together in a very naturalistic way make you just literally feel like, yes, you're sitting with these characters for whatever it is a day, and it's brilliant. And I think just because we did go on to later watch The Long Walk, which is also about male friendship, I think La Haine is one of these like phenomenal films about male friendship where they're never really discussing the big things.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
And yet everything they say is a comment on the big things.
100%. It's like also like for a film that you immediately switch it on, you know, immediately the film begins, and you know you're hit with these sort of this sort of footage of like the riots in Paris, and you know it's going to be a political film one way or another. But then, you know, it's also kind of not, because it just feels because you're watching it through these characters and sort of the way that they, you know, discover things about like sort of the like systematic oppression and like sort of it is very, again, like it uses comedy and it uses their sort of banter and you know whatnot to, and it puts them in this situation, and it's them reacting to things, and it's them trying to find their friends, and it's them and it's all like done through the characters, which I think is always first and foremost the best way to do things.
Oh, 1,000%, yeah.
Later on that day, we watched a little bit of a different film. We watched The Roses.
Oh my God, yeah.
With Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman, both classically trained British icon actors. It was kind of nice sort of watching that after the sort of hard-hitting La Haine, I guess. Really, really fun. I mean, I don't think it's
not
a
masterpiece.
I don't think it's a great film at all.
Yeah.
But I think what kind of makes this film as sort of fun and cheeky and playful as it is literally Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch. I can kind of watch that. I can watch those two for hours.
And like the storyline was fine. But what really brought it is their acting.
Absolutely.
I believe, like, every moment that Olivia Colman, all the subtle things about her, like, sort of feeling detached from her children, she just brings the emotional beats every time. And that's what makes this film not terrible.
Yeah. What a review. The next day we watched Begin Again, which is the same director who directed a film called Sing Street, which you have seen. I haven't seen. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen
Sing Street. Okay, I thought you had seen it. And this one stars Mark Ruffalo as this sort of down on his luck, sort of fading kind of music producer, and he comes across Keira Knightley in New York. I love films that take place in New York to even begin with, no pun intended. And I think I'm reluctant to say guilty pleasure because I don't think the film is bad, but I think like this is sort of a comfort film of mine.
Yeah, and I can totally see why. Like, I'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was sweet. I did kind of, I thought each character was like very wholesome.
Yeah.
And very satisfying.
Yeah.
Like, it's always fun as someone who's sort of in the creative space watching a film about creatives that struggle and then make it work with all the, jealousy or pressures of watching, the ex that cheated on you succeed kind of thing. It's a good watch.
It's great. Absolutely. I'd check it out. Like, if you just need something sort of light to watch, but also does have kind of depth to it, I guess. And it has great music. It has this great montage to Stevie Wonder's For Once in My Life, which is amazing. Begin Again. You kind
of want a Friday night comfort film when you're feeling a bit down. 100%.
Next, I went to see One Battle After Another at the Warner Brothers multimedia screening. I went with my friend Isaac. The pair of us reviewed the film here on the channel. I'll leave a link to it in the description down below, because that has more or less kind of my full thoughts on it. I have seen it since went to see it with Mickey and Panwa and Clara, of course, at the IMAX. First time I checked it out was VistaVision. Brilliant, amazing experience. The only film I've ever watched in VistaVision, but also I actually think VistaVision was better
than the IMAX experience.
Yeah, which is something I never say about the IMAX experience, but it was
VistaVision.
I think it's great. IMAX was fantastic as well. But why don't you give your sort of quick thoughts on?
I loved the film. I thought it was really brilliant. I think I've never seen anything like this at all in my life before. And I thought that was what made it brilliant. The performances were amazing, very funny. I mean, people have spoken at length about the car chase. Brilliant. Never seen anything like it. The only thing that I would, and again, this is like me criticizing a masterpiece for like a hair that's wrong. But for me, the thing that I didn't really love was that I feel like people very much labelled it a very political film. And of course, it's about these two radical groups. And it's a bit about white supremacy, but I don't feel like it has loads of depth. And I do feel like the sort of immigration plot line isn't a plot line and is kind of used just in the background.
But that's the thing, but I don't think it's a plot line. I think it is.
It's just a background. It's like vibe. Yeah. And I don't really feel like, I don't know, I guess I was kind of hoping for something slightly deeper. And I did feel like the main character, the daughter,
Chase Infinity.
I think Chase Infinity is brilliant. I think her performance is great. But what saddened me a bit is, as I just spoke about, I feel like PTA is amazing at complex characters that both have things you love and hate about them as real life people do. And I just feel like her character was just reactionary, and I didn't, being the sort of heartbeat, being the sort of pivotal thing in the film, I did feel like she was just reacting to the world around her constantly. And by all means, she was strong, and you empathized with her because of the terrible situation she was in, but I didn't find her to be complex or interesting like I found the other characters around her, and I found that a little bit of a disappointment. Having said that, brilliant, check it out. Never seen anything like it. We'll definitely watch again. These are just my nitpicks.
I mean, if you have heard my thoughts on the review for the film, I think this is, for me, the film of the year.
Amazing score. Sorry.
And Johnny Greenwood's score.
Amazing score.
Fantastic. It's just absolutely brilliant. The wonderful thing, very quickly, we're going to talk about Magnolia and There Will Be Blood next, but the wonderful thing about Johnny Greenwood's scores is I feel like Johnny Greenwood's scores are, in the best way, and I mean this as a huge compliment, they're so different from the way they're constructed. They're so different from the typical way scoring is done for films, in that I don't necessarily have a burning desire to continuously listen to Johnny Greenwood scores out and about. But when you watch them in context of the film, it is just an elemental sort of force of filmmaking in the film. It's so vital to the film, but they're not necessarily the most sort of inviting melodies or inviting sort of or comforting kind of music, but instead when they work in context with the images you're watching on screen, it's just it's brilliant. But yeah, I loved One Battle After Another, and I might go check it out again for a third time, second time. VistaVision. On the 20th, I had one of the greatest days of the cinema. We had one of the greatest days. Sorry, yeah. It's just me. I'm just talking. We had one of the greatest days at the cinema I think I've ever had in my life, and we watched Magnolia and There Will Be Blood back to back in 35mm at the Prince Charles Cinema in London. What a fucking experience this was.
Absolutely amazing.
Just one thing really quickly about 35mm. I think like a lot of people just don't care about the way they watch films, and especially if you go to the cinema, isn't that enough? Watch films how you want to watch films in the context of cinema. But if you ever get a chance to go to watch a film like on a 35mm projector, it's actual film, like the actual physical film, it's being projected on a wonderful screen, and like you can see all the texture, the grain, the way the film looks is completely different. The colors pop more. It is such an experience, and what two films to watch the experience that for.
And it is kind of amazing, the idea that physical ream is going through. This is how films were first made. This is how this film was first made.
Absolutely.
And like you can literally hear it in very quietly
in the background. In the
background.
It's gorgeous. And for the films themselves, Magnolia, let's start with that very quickly. Paul Thomas Anderson, like, he's handled multiple characters at once, like in a film like Boogie Nights, but this, he really kind of gets to grips with them. Each of these characters represents something different about sort of the human condition, and kind of how they all sort of intertwine, and their storylines converge, and they disperse, and I just think this film is absolutely brilliant. Of course, everybody talks about Tom Cruise in this film, and rightly so. Like, I think,
but he was the Andrew Tate before Andrew Tate.
He was.
Paul Thomas Anderson saw it. Like,
he was the OG Andrew Tate.
I thought it was, and I have seen this before. First watch, was impressed, because it is an impressive film. Like what he does, again, a film I've never seen anything like it before. The way he does characters, the way he tackles so many stories, as you said, intertwined into one space, and each of them commenting off each other, phenomenal. But I found it an uncomfortable watch the first time I watched it. I thought, and I use the phrase nasty film, partly because I just found all the characters to be slightly dislikable, and like coming from a place of bitterness. And I was like, yeah, impressive, but not for me. Like, made me feel a bit uncomfortable. On the rewatch, found it very heartwarming. I found all the characters deeply sympathetic and troubled. I found them all trying to do their best in a world that is this complicated. I mean, most of them, maybe not the paedophile, and I just found it. I felt I was almost like, I was so moved, and I really think if you didn't necessarily get on with it the first time, definitely check it out again, because I think it has so many layers. And is a very personal film.
That's the thing about Magnolia, is because it's an over 3 hour long film, it is quite in terms of like, you need to sit down and dedicate a certain amount of time to watch this. But I think it's one of PTA's strongest films, and I just, I think it's just absolutely brilliant, just how all these storylines both share. Like, it's interesting to see where they kind of cross over in terms of how they're similar, but also how massively different they are also from one another. And I also do feel like most of them do end on a very kind of human note. Like, they start off, as you say, as very dislikable characters, and maybe if you met them in the street, they are dislikable, probably. But everybody has their own story, no matter how sort of troubled and lost they are. Everybody has their own story, and I think that's what PTA always does, is he actually just sympathizes with the most sort of conflicted of characters, I guess.
But I think especially, like, and not to bring this back to what I always bring it back to, but especially in these times, like looking just at where people are coming from, and like really thinking about that, because most people have their own story, and that it often comes from their own troubles and things like that, and just don't judge immediately, as I did on the first watch.
There you go. There Will Be Blood. Paul Thomas Anderson's best film, without a doubt. Like, it still is. I think this film.
I don't know in our review. I'm really coming on to Magnolia.
Really?
I don't know. No.
Oh my goodness. PTA's There Will Be Blood. There's nothing quite like it. I don't really know how to describe this. It is obviously channeled by this utterly sort of intoxicating performance by Daniel Day-Lewis. I think potentially the greatest performance I think I've ever seen, per se. Greatest performance in cinema of all time, who knows? Maybe. He is just an absolute force of nature here, driving the film just as much as PTA is, and how, again, PTA is able to give this sort of commentary on kind of religion and capitalism, and how those two things kind of sort of are symbiotic in nature, how one relies on the other and the other relies on the other, and sort of the way that they clash, but the way that they work in synchronization with each other is just brilliant. Paul Dano also doesn't get as much love just because, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis is.
But he's brilliant.
He's very, very
He's
good.
brilliant.
He's so good.
And the score again,
Johnny Greenwood's score, brilliant, fantastic, masterpiece. This is PTA's best work still for me. I think it's a very, very special film. And I think that if you've seen this film once and you're not really sure how you feel, check it out for a second time. Again, as a lot of PTA's films, check it out for a second time. And yeah.
And one thing I did kind of love about this film is, you know, the sort of main villain of the story is done in such a brilliant way, and you don't need like his origin story.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that I really liked about this film. I think so many times when we watch something from the villain's point of view, we're waiting for the and when his wife left him, or when his father hit him, or when you're waiting for that's the moment, when actually, of course, that's completely ridiculous, because so many people have bad things happen to them and turn out completely fine. So actually it was quite refreshing to be so engaged, almost to the point of sympathy with this villainous character, but not need this but this is the reason. It was just purely from how he interacted with people, those very immediate character things.
No, absolutely. But that's the brilliance of someone like Daniel Day-Lewis, who's able to paint a character just through performance. The way he contorts his body, his tics, his expression, how it changes, how it remains the same, how he interacts with other people, how he has these outbursts, it's I was saying this to Mickey and Panwa the other day. There are so many actors, and there are quite a few actors who we consider to be up there amongst as the greatest of all time. You've got De Niro, you've got potentially Al Pacino, you've got Marlon Brando, you've got Meryl Streep, you've got Cate Blanchett. All these phenomenal actors. For me, when you watch a film like There Will Be Blood and you watch Mr. Daniel Day-Lewis in it, for me, I think, honestly, I just don't think that there's anybody who really kind of comes close to that. Like, genuinely, with a performance like this, he's completed acting, like, genuinely. That's There Will Be Blood. On the 21st, we went to see The Long Walk. Finally checked out The Long Walk. I'd been hearing a lot of great things about the film. Everybody in sort of my Letterboxd sort of community has been loving it. Panwa, one of his favorite films of the year, really broke him. We went to see it. I was quite underwhelmed.
Yeah, same, 100%. Things about it I liked. I did like the male friendships. I thought they were done sweetly.
Yeah.
But yeah, thought the film looked flat.
Yeah.
Thought the world it was living in was derivative of things we've seen before. But also even the male friendships, thinking about Back to La Haine and how that is done so brilliantly and through sort of humor, I felt like this was very directed. They were telling us constantly how they wanted us to feel. Big discussions about how to love between the boys, how to I just felt like a little bit, I'm not saying that you can't discuss how to love with your friends. Great discussions to have. Just did feel very pointed and very sort of plot driving and orchestrated and not actually how people would interact. So the film just kind of fell flat for me. Yeah,
unfortunately, I think the main problem I have with this film is actually Francis Lawrence. Like, I've got nothing against the guy personally, but I just don't think he has much of a voice there at all. And I feel like a film like this could have really benefited from someone with a bit more of an independent voice there to really get the emotions out of the characters. And I know a lot of people have been really kind of emotionally affected by this. It just didn't do much for me. I think, again, like you said, he's just very flat, very safe. He's a very safe director, but for me, safe doesn't need to mean like dull or boring.
Yeah.
Like look at Denis Villeneuve, for example. I just feel like really there was a lot missing from the film for me, and I feel like the filmmaking could have really elevated the main themes. And I think any ounce of emotion that this film gives you really comes from Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson and Stephen King's sort of bleak material. I just thought it was a bit mid, and I do think there are some scenes that are pretty good, and the score is actually not bad. I actually really enjoyed the
and violence just used as that like shot factor.
Yeah, the violence is it's
very bland.
Exactly, like there are all these sort of headshots that take place, and you are kind of sort of anticipating the next one with a certain level of dread. But I do feel like the tone of doing something extreme as that, but then also going back to the characters when it's kind of this very kind of YA teenage dialogue kind of thing, just for me was a tonally inconsistent experience. I didn't really love The Long Walk. I think it's fine. I think it's okay. And I'm really glad a lot of people are reacting well to it. But that is it. That is everything that we watched in the month of September. Thank you so much, Clara, for joining me again on the couch. Guys, if you have any thoughts on any of those films, do let us know in the comments section down below. But for now, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll catch you very soon in the next episode of the Popcorn Podcast. Cheers.